You have to tell me if my hair is wacky or anything.
Okay, well, Chris will tell you.
It always is.
No, you're looking cool.
No, it's
It'll be
good.
fine.
All set.
We're rolling.
Good?
Yeah.
All right. First of all, talk about being here, these couple shows, how things went last night, and what it's like
Oh,
playing
this
this song.
is just a great place. I never had been here before. I've heard of it because of, I guess, John Bryan's shows being a regular thing here, and he, I haven't seen his show here. I haven't seen him in a long time. It just his reputation is kind of grown and grown and grown, but I haven't had the good fortune yet
Mhm.
to see him here. But I heard about this place a lot
Yeah.
before that, and I really like it a lot.
What are the audiences like? Do you know your audience at this point when you come to someone like a place like LA, or do you know what kind of people are coming?
I don't. In LA, it's always been a mystery to me. It's really, it's different from any place else, and I never have been able to put my finger on it really. You know, actually, I really started, basically, my first real professional, beginnings were in LA and San Diego.
Mhm.
And way, 100 years ago.
Doing what? Remind us.
Folk music,
Uh-huh.
playing. I was just like a Texas folk musician, really young, really not knowing anything about the business or anything.
Mhm.
And it was, and California was the place, for a Texan.
How did it go for you early on?
Well, it was fun and interesting, but like I said, it was well, because of the fact that I was always such a hybrid of, I was a little too country, and a little too folky, a little too, and also a little too much influenced by the rock and roll, and
Mhm.
so it was so hard to categorize my music. That never did change.
I was going to
actually.
say, talk about that, because obviously that's become kind of a nice calling card for you. But was there a time when that was kind of difficult and it was hard to reconcile all that kind of stuff?
Well, difficult only in the sense that, if I had been really more seriously ambitious, it would have been a big problem. But because really, in a sense, I think music has always just been more like, not a hobby, but it's just what I love.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of the things that I've been involved in, and so I never did really hang that much on. I didn't kind of think of myself as exclusively a musician, and it was probably my professional standing suffered because of that.
But there must have been a point, obviously, when that clicked in and you thought, obviously I have the talent, I got what it takes, and people actually want to hear it. What was
Well,
that
I do.
like?
I love music to this day as much as I did when I was a little kid. And it's and I've made a career of it.
Yeah.
And but I never was able to really figure out or go the way forging the career kind of thing. I just did the music. I just kept on playing, and eventually I was able to. I think I've been very, very lucky. I think I'm one of the few people that's been able to like kind of basically just do exactly what I wanted to musically and still make a living at it and keep going. I still get to do it now.
Yeah.
And I don't have to follow the trends or anything. I don't understand the trends.
Right. There's been so much talk about you crossing so many boundaries and doing your own thing, and besides doing the real rootsy stuff that everyone knows in the folk music, but having this mystical side and that comes out in your songs and things you're interested in. How much of that do you kind of enjoy hearing about? How much of that is just garbage and, like you say, you're just doing your thing?
Well, I really think that in a sense, might be overstating it, but really I've been more, in a way, a philosopher than a musician, in a certain sense. But that's like, I mean, that sounds kind of grandiose, I don't think I'm a good philosopher. It's just that that's what I'm interested in.
Right.
You know, and I never really had the. I was just a little bit too lazy to really become a scholar. You know, and although in another way, I think that's the right way to go about it.
Right. You're a philosopher that people like to hear what you have to say, both in your music and I know you also do some kind of teaching. Maybe if you want to talk about that. And is that purely songwriting or?
I started teaching a songwriting class once a year at the Omega Institute in upstate New York, and then also about every other year or so I do it at Esalen out here in California, and then also there's a new one in Austin called The Crossings that I've done. It's new.
Yeah.
I've done it there the first couple of years that I've been open, and I discovered I couldn't be a teacher full time. I've discovered that, but by doing it in these little short bits, it's actually been one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because it sort of forced me into consolidating my thoughts. You know, you know, it's a platitude, but it's really true. If you teach something, you really learn more than you teach. And that's the way that's worked for me, and it kind of caused, actually, in lots of ways, it's kind of made me realize that the different strands of my career have actually woven together in a kind of a unified way. That,
What's it actually like? 'Cause I'm curious about this image of Jimmie Dale Gilmore in front of like a chalkboard with a bunch of students.
no, it doesn't work
I'm sure
like
it's
that.
nothing like that.
No, what I do is more or less I just kind of recreate the sort of environment that my circle of friends and I always had when we were younger. We just did music totally for the fun of it, and then talked about it. And of course I had the great good fortune of just falling into a circle of people that were immensely talented. You know, that and quite a number of our little gang went on to become well-known songwriters and musicians. And but I don't really teach a class. I just kind of set up a situation where the class itself just does a bunch of music, and then talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just love it. So it's really, really fun. And just simply because of the fact that I'm the teacher, you know, I get to stop the conversation where I want to, or you know, I get to turn it off into different directions. And it's really kind of ideal for me. I'm not really a bossy person, but I do like for things to go the way I want them to.
It's a good environment for you.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Talk about this record and these songs, and how much of that, 'cause you talked a little about wanting to do music when you were younger, and how much of that came from your dad and your whole love of music?
Oh, a lot. My dad and I were, from my earliest memories, music was just such a huge part of just every day. You know, we were really poor. We didn't even have a record player until I was like in my late teens. But we just had the radio, but my dad played and sang, you know, sitting around the house, and he was one of these people that I became too. That, you know, that music was just I don't know, almost an obsession. That's a little. It sounds a little negative or something, but it's just a love, a really deep love of music, and in his case, you know, a particular branch of music, and that really saturated me, and it's still there with me. It's still music that I deeply love.
Yeah. And how many of these songs are songs that not only attribute to your dad, but songs that are also your favorite songs growing up? I guess these are songs that are part of your life.
Oh yeah. Although, you know, I could have made probably 10 completely different records of of the music from that period that my dad really liked and that I liked. There was a lot. There's really a wealth of music from that period, and when we were recording it, at times I would say, boy, what am I doing singing a Marty Robbins song? I'm going to get compared to Marty Robbins, and he's a real singer. And Joe Ely, every time I say something like that, Joe would say, well, in the first place, you're not copying these people. You're doing it your own way. And also, for the most part, most people, the large audience has actually never heard these songs, so that it's completely new. There won't be a comparison made because it'll be here for the first time. So that's comforting.
You do have concerns about that? At this point in your career, you're actually concerned about things like that. I find that really interesting because obviously you bring your take to these songs. They're just on the page. It sounds like a wonderful thing even before you hear them. But
well, if you go back, of course, in the course of doing this thing, I went back and listened to a lot of the originals, and the reason I loved it so much is still there.
Yeah.
Just like that intensity of some of those guys' voices and the whole treatment. It's just amazing, beautiful, especially the vocals. I think that's probably, well, to a large degree, the playing on a lot of these old things was really great too. But I'd stack Rob Gerso up against any of those old time guys.
You got some good people with you.
Yeah.
How many of these guys did you ever get to actually see growing up? How many of them did you become friends with later on in your career when you had success?
I got to meet quite a few of them. I got to meet Hank Snow and Johnny Cash and Ernest Tubb one time. Yeah. And just recently we did a big benefit for the flood victims that Willie Nelson put on in Austin, and I got to meet Ray Price. Can you imagine? It was a show with Willie Nelson, Ray Price, the Neville Brothers. What a
great bunch!
Perfect thing. It's like every kind of music that I love the most, all on the same stage that night.
Yeah, but you've been lucky. You've been embraced by all types of music your whole career, or at least it seems that way. But people from all walks have embraced what you do. How fortunate do you feel to be able to have had that happen? Because that doesn't happen all the time.
Oh, I think because my temperament, because I was so open to different kinds of music, different, just everything, different attitudes, and philosophy. I think that I share that attitude. I think the kind of people that sort of think that way are kind of notice that in my stuff, and also because this earliest music that I was influenced by the most is so simple and so it's not psychologically complex or anything. Although in certain ways, it's got a lot of depth in some of these old songs. But and then my music evolved into being pretty, I guess, convoluted in the lyrics, and so I sort of have the best of both worlds in that respect.
Is that refreshing now in some ways, or simpler, or I don't know if easier is the right word, but when you come up and play these songs, does it just take you back to?
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun for me because it's just, and I've always done it. Through my whole career, I always did a lot of these songs like interspersed with my songs and my friends' songs, and so that in that respect, it's not completely new, but it's really fun for me to be able to just go, okay, I'm gonna play hillbilly music tonight.
Yeah. That kind of stuff like second nature to you, these kind of songs? The kind of thing
very much so.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so embedded in my, I think probably Hank Williams was, it's hard for me to remember now. I mean, it's quite a long time ago now, but but I think Hank Williams was kind of permeating my mind, you know, with his music when I was a very small child.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I don't know why. I loved it then, and I love it now.
Mm-hmm. We joked around about the whole legend thing, but you're talking about all these guys, and the guys you get to play with and meet, and you know, now and some years down the line, your name's there with these guys you talk about. Is that a thrill for you, knowing that you're on the same plane as these
Well,
people?
you know, I just have my own take on it. You know, I have well, my own personal excuse is just that I love it. I just love the music. I don't really perceive myself as being in the league with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But since I love it so much, that's, you know, what else is there?
Right. But there's obviously probably a certain thrill out of being very unique and doing your own thing, unlike probably anyone that's come before you too. You revel in that a little bit, I would think, right?
Yeah, if I
No, and
if I believe it, I feel like I'm sort of falling for something. You know,
Right.
it's show business is a very odd thing.
Yeah.
Very. It's a combination of being. It's artificial. It's artificial, but art is artificial. I mean, that's
sure.
That's where the word comes from. You know, it's a. So I have a. I don't know. I think I've managed to be sort of realistic about it without being jaded,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people I know are.
Yeah.
Gotten even some of the great, really good performers. It's almost like they don't really like it. They just pretend to, you know. And
Sure.
and I think I've been very lucky in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mainly because I didn't try to force myself into any specific mold,
Mm-hmm.
and I just, once again, I attribute a lot of that to having the great good fortune of being around some immensely talented people. I mean, some of my peers, you know, some of my best friends
Mm-hmm.
from childhood, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Butch Hancock and Joe Ely, of course.
Yeah.
To me, they're in the league with any of the great writers and performers. So I feel like I've I don't know. I've sort of, in one sense, I feel like I've made a career of just being an appreciator. You know, as a kind of a connoisseur, and in that. In a way, that means that I kind of stand back from it a little bit. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'm observing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what you asked me. They
But
got
no,
off into this tangent.
But it's nice that you can do that and have that distance and be smart enough to appreciate things. Yeah, not everyone can. How proud are you of what you've accomplished with this record? Was it what you
Oh,
set
I
out
love
to
it.
do?
Yes, I'm very. And the main thing is that I very much have a feeling that my dad would have really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad actually, he was a fan of my music
Mhm.
and of the Flatlanders, you know,
Yeah.
and he got to hear the last record that I did besides the Flatlander stuff was like 5 years ago. It was the one called One Endless Night, and my dad really liked that record.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have to imagine what he would have thought of this. You know, I know he liked hearing me do the old songs, and I think he would have liked this.
Mm-hmm.
the
Was it an
frequent
incredibly
on this.
emotional thing recording them or singing these things now? Do those kind of thoughts
Well,
go through your head, or it's part of your life anyways? These
You
songs,
know, the emotional part really mainly happened when I started writing the liner notes,
Mm.
and that really, because the music is just it's just been all around me so much for so long. I don't necessarily particularly focus in on that.
Sure.
But when I started trying to put down on paper, you know, the story of my dad's life,
Mhm.
and
Which you did
and the
beautifully, by
music,
the way. Yeah.
that really, that was, I shouldn't say hard. It was just very kind of hard. No, that misrepresents what it was. It wasn't hard. It was really fun and important for me. But it really brought up all my feelings about my dad. That the music. My dad just sort of permeates the music for me, and so it's just kind of always there.
And talk about the guitar that's on the cover of this. You play the guitar on the record?
Well, I did a little bit, but Rob, see, I never played electric. This is an old Fender electric.
Yeah.
One of the very first ones, and Rob Gerso is the he plays everything. He plays most of the lead stuff and most of the rhythm stuff, in fact, on the record. And I played a teeny bit on a couple of songs, just a couple of little licks on it because I wanted to get that in there. But Rob played it on a couple of the cuts, and it really made me. That's one regret I have, that I didn't learn to play the guitar the way my dad did. I should have learned it from him, but I always thought of the guitar as a accompaniment. I really was just always more focused on the songs, and it was much later in my life that I kind of realized that technique and actually playing was something I could have done if I just had devoted the time to it.
You're being somewhat modest because you're a decent guitar player.
Well, but it's all acoustic,
Right,
so I just only learned acoustic guitar. I learned how to accompany myself. I learned how to play enough to that I could put a song over, but I really have an appreciation for good players, and this record has. I think that. I think it's one of the reasons that I think my dad would have liked it so much, because he loved guitar music. Yeah,
well, it sounds great throughout. Yeah. Talk about going from this, what you're working on now. Have you been writing new songs this whole time, and you already have a whole?
Well, I have been, but I'm slow. I've always been. I never have been a prolific writer, and as I've discussed about on this thing, I always perceived myself as an interpreter. And I never really thought of myself as a writer. And I wrote some songs that I really like, but I just don't think of myself as a writer, really. And that's probably a mistake too.
Don't put that in the class
right, yeah.
description, right, for your next course.
And now the thing about it is I've plugged away at it long enough that I actually have a little stack of things written here. But my friends have giant stacks.
Right. Your albums have always been full of great originals as well as great songs you've interpreted from other people. Yeah.
And that's my approach to it always was that I would rather do a good song that somebody else wrote than a mediocre one that I wrote. So that's determined a lot of the stuff I've done.
Great. Very good. This album is
thank you.
As always. Real pleasure talking.